It is, I gotta get this out of my head.
building, no structural improvements. We're going to remove a wall, but it's not a structural wall in the building. And so once Child Support Services has done that tenant remodel and occupied that new half, the Office of Education would like to move into the newly vacated half once child support moves over to the new area. And so we've begun discussions with the Office of Education, and the CAO's office has recently had some discussions as well. And so just for everybody's information, the county and the Office of Education, we're partners. And so we're, per the state codes, we're obligated to essentially provide them a location for some of their staffing. And so we've offered with our current budgets to provide architectural services to help the Office of Education come up with a plan to provide tenant improvements to the part that will be vacated by Child Support Services. And so in very preliminary discussions with Office of Education, they are looking for additional funding that will need to be presented to the full board, but per your recommendation of the two ad hoc committee members here today, to allocate between $400,000 and $500,000 of general funds. And the CAO can correct me if this is not the correct terminology, but they're looking for, the Office of Education is looking for between $400,000 and $500,000 of funds to remodel the portion, the half of the existing behavioral health building that will be vacated. And then therefore they'll, after that remodel, Office of Ed staff can move into that portion of the building. So I guess I'll just I'll pause there. And let the CAO add some
I'll add
context, please.
a few items with that. So I did meet with the Office of Ed yesterday and have met with them before. And we discussed the potential site again yesterday. We were discussing using an architect to help them. I know that they've met with the architect already, and they're, they have some ideas and thoughts. What they are requesting is a new kitchen, the new foyer area, as well as having access to the bathroom for part of that that building space. So again, we don't know exactly the numbers, but we're kind of guesstimating per my conversation with Steve, the square footage and the work that they're requesting. Again, we don't have exact numbers yet because I guess the architect, and we haven't really finalized everything, but I think what Steve has is probably a good figure to go off of right now. So I think that's more or less it. And they feel that they and I'm not sure, is she on the line? Is she? Maybe she can comment on it if she would like.
Who's the she that you're referring to?
Crystal Lamonto, sorry.
And we're currently making Crystal a panelist, so if she wants to provide additional information, it'll just be a moment, please.
Speaking of the Office of Ed, Supervisor Gonzalez, that'd be Crystal Lamonto.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ray, are you asking me to respond?
Well, concerning the funding, your point, and I don't want to speak on your behalf, with that, I know you had some concerns about the ownership of the building and not being able to put money to it. So I think there's some technicalities on your side that doesn't allow you to put investment into the property.
Correct. So just to backfill just a little bit. So it was about this time last year that CAO Espinosa let us know that they would be moving us due to the exciting grant that the library received. And so from that process, Ray asked us to meet with Karen, who I know no longer works for the county. And she was the one that actually sat down to go over what the county had determined was a budget for the remodel of that side. And at that time, she talked a little bit about architect cost, moving costs, and upgrades to carpets and painting. And so that's where the conversation ensued. We had met maybe one other time at the facility itself to see if it would meet the needs of the county office. Karen did invite us in November to a meeting with the architect. And so some of the kitchen itself is extremely outdated. I don't know if any of the Board of Supervisors has gone and visited the facility. I would strongly recommend that you go over there to take a look at the the standard of the facility. When we did meet with the architect, there's a part of the facility in which the backside of the facility in which our staff would be located does not have access to a bathroom. They'd have to go all the way around and out. So the architect himself recommended that there be a door to allow them to access the restroom, because there's a meeting room in between, so they would not be able to access the restroom if somebody was meeting in the room. And then the foyer, the discussion really was about where the workstation is. If you haven't been in there, it's a decent size area. What would that workstation for the receptionist look like? So that piece, about taking that piece out. The only other thing that was discussed with the architect, with Karen in the room as a representative of the county, the kitchen is extremely old. The cabinets you can't even touch without getting splinters. And the suggestion from the architect at that point, there's a one wall that I don't believe is a weight bearing wall, to move and extend that wall out. So there could be some upgrades to the kitchen itself. So I wanted to backfill and give some context. We did meet with Ray yesterday. So it's kind of gone from, yes, the county, since it is your facility, was going to engage with some dollars to remodel, from what my understanding is now, that is up for discussion. I have public funds that I'm responsible for, and we don't own the facility. So legally, we would not put in $400,000 into a facility of our public funds that are meant for a specific responsibility, because we're not allowed to. We don't own the facility. And so that was the conversation with Ray yesterday, provided him with ed code that clearly delineates that out. We're happy to collaborate and work. We understand that we have to vacate this area because the library did receive the grant and needs to expand. But that's where we're at this point.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you, Crystal. So, yeah, so we're not, asking for any kind of board decision today. Obviously, that the final decision would go to the full board, but we'll bring this item when I think the next step, as Crystal mentioned, there was just some preliminary site walk and some preliminary discussions with the architect. We'd like to take the architect, have another second follow-up site visit with Crystal and her team. Have a little more detail on some of the items that Crystal mentioned. That way we could come up with a little more definitive budget and present that to the Board of Supervisors, the full board, if this committee decides to move that forward to the full board. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, appreciate it, Steve.
Great. Can we go to public comment, please?
Sorry. Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, we're covering both items 9 and 10, correct, Steve?
Yeah, well, it dovetails into 10, but they're definitely related.
Yeah,
So
sure.
if you
I'll
could
officially open up 10 still.
Thank
and
you.
do
I just
public
wanted-
comment, but yeah, for 9, yeah, I get it. All right. So is that all, staff? We're good. Okay. Public comment, please.
In chambers, please provide a speaker card. Via Zoom, please press *9 or the raise your hand icon. No comment.
Back to the committee. Supervisor Gonzalez, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, I do have some questions. I'm circling back to this. I was on facilities 2 years ago, and so I missed the last year or so. So I apologize if anything is redundant. But Steve, can you, I guess, just for transparency's sake, can you explain a little bit further, or CAO Espinosa, elaborate on the state code aspect of this? Because just vaguely, my understanding was that this goes back to like 1950 something, and that this is a relatively unique arrangement. if
I
I'm
would
not
defer
mistaken.
that to legal counsel. I know legal and I had conversations about this yesterday, and she's been.
Yeah, we're looking into that. And I think that the next thing that we need to have is a meeting with Crystal to further discuss that. They have not gone independent. And I would like to discuss what the Office of Education's long-term plan to go independent, and whether there's any. So I think we could bring that back to the Facilities Committee at the next meeting, if that's possible.
Okay, yeah, I would appreciate that. I know that's it's no fault of anybody,
Yes.
basically anybody who's alive now, because this goes back so far. But just from a practical standpoint, I mean, I've talked with staff about this, that we understand that what the law says and it's a code, but it also, just from a practical standpoint, really doesn't make any sense that the county's providing and paying for all this facility usage for the Office of Ed. Again, Superintendent Lamonto, that nothing against you or anyone. But for me, I'm just hoping that we can find a reasonable path forward for both sides. And then the remodel, I'm hoping that we can have some options if we go down the path of a remodel, and just, what's absolutely essential, working with the Office of Education on, not just this is our list and go forward with it. I think we'll have to have some talks back and forth to find a reasonable middle ground on the needs there. That's just my perspective. And I don't know if you have any initial thoughts on what is absolutely essential, as far as, and we want to, we want the space to be usable, obviously, but do you have any thoughts on
Yeah.
what is absolutely essential?
And do you want to talk about that internally? Just because, I mean, what is, essential versus a higher level of standard, before you disseminate that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Crystal's suggestion to have this committee, tour, the existing building is probably appropriate, and that way you can get some perspective. And yeah, I'll just say most of the items that Crystal mentioned seem reasonable based on the existing facility. But again, it's a level like for the foyer. Well, we
Well,
can
I
just have
do
a tour
note
and
that
talk about it some more. In
The county
future.
staff was in that facility until recently. So,
Understood. Yeah.
so I mean, I think that there is a very low, not all these repairs are like essential or required probably for the occupation. So we'll have to look at those. Yeah.
Noted. Yeah. So I think we all take a tour and brainstorm and go from there.
And that I could totally agree. And hopefully the superintendent, if we can all come together and do that and everyone can kind of explain their side, that would really make a lot of sense to me. And I totally get the thing with the issue with the meeting room. I understand whether we work something out as far as access or have a further explanation on that. I think it would be helpful.
And also I will ask Crystal, and if the county, like if there's a formal lease in place, does that affect any of her funding abilities to fund any partial of the repairs if there's a formal lease?
I
in
was going to
place?
ask that.
Yeah.
That was actually my next question is that a possibility that we look into a lease of some kind with the Office of Ed, even though we have this state code aspect of this, at least to get us to the point if there is interest from this Office of Ed to go independent at some point, at least get us to that point. Totally agree. And then have we looked at any other locations? Are there any other, or is this pretty much the only?
Supervisor Kozmicki?
Yes.
I just want to say thank you for expressing your concerns. I share them with you, and this has been an ongoing conversation. So I'm glad it's a new voice expressing it, because it might be appreciated and listened to differently. But thank you for expressing those concerns that you just voiced. Thank you very much.
That. But other options, is this pretty much we've nailed it down? This is.
No, again, this is, in our discussions before, there's been, with Crystal Lamonto and the Office of Ed, there were some conversations prior to even us getting a grant that they're busting at the seams, and they were looking for potentially a different sites or expansion as well. with the grant coming in place, asking her, is this something feasible? Do you want to go take a look at it? Those were my initial comments. It wasn't, you're moving over there. So, and specifically that's the location. I did talk with Crystal yesterday about potential other locations within the county. We just honestly don't really have a lot of space. I think there was a space that was brought up, the current public health office, and that is a lease that we actually have for that for the subvention office through Health and Human Services. So we don't actually even own that. So that we've been looking at it, and unless Steve has something else, but we don't. We're going to talk about this later. Rosa Morada. We're going to talk about with Buena Vista. We have some other sites, but I think it's going to be substantially more money than the 400,000 to address that. So we're looking, this is probably the most economical approach, where it's still going to cost some money to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That was pretty much the extent I would, going off of the site visit. Is that something that Supervisor Gonzalez, are you amenable to a site visit to this location if schedules work out?
Yeah, yes, definitely, because I'm not aware of the kitchen situation. I've toured that building in the past when it was still behavioral health and one of the other county offices. I think Health and Human Services, it kind of curves around, but I would love to tour it. Yes.
Great. And then if Superintendent Lamonto, if you're still on, or would you be okay with setting up a site visit? And then do you have any other thoughts on any of this information?
No, I'm happy to join you guys for a site visit.
That would be great. We much appreciate
If
it.
it's both supervisors at one time, it would still be a formal meeting.
That's right.
If you do it separately. Yeah, that's.
Okay, we'll figure
Either
that
way.
out. And if we go both at the same time, then we'll have to do that. But otherwise we can go separate.
Yeah. We can do it during a next meeting that we have, and then just.
I don't think anyone from the public's gonna want to take a lot to go to behavioral health. It's just me. I mean, maybe Susan. I don't know. And you'd be welcome. Yeah.
right.
Okay. So are we on the same page then, everybody?
Yep.
And we're set for that item?
Good.
Okay, great. Then we can move on to item number 10, receive updates, discuss child support services, construction status and fund obligations, and provide staff direction. We did go over this for the most part. Is there anything else from staff?
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Steve, if you were I was just gonna say timeline. I believe the conversation we had, Steve, was probably 3 months from now that construction will be close to being done. So that's good news. And then they would be moving into the new facility. So then at that point, they would the portion that they're in, that would be freed up. But that's probably the only piece I have. There is another element to this that we probably need to discuss, but it'll have to be most likely at a different in a different setting. Actually, it might be later in this meeting, actually in a closed session, concerning what our current contract is for 1131 and 1111 San Felipe, and our obligations actually end at the end of June. Our $1.26, I think currently what we're paying per square foot, that will actually reduce to $1 a year. And we will have to then pay maintenance and taxes and a few other, and I think one other thing. But with that, there might be some small costs there that we may have to work with CSS on, based on a conversation I had with staff had with Sunny from CSDC. But we'll talk about that later, the more details of that. Great.
Just a couple things to add to information from CAO. The construction is actually beginning, which is exciting. And yes, it'll be approximately 3 months to complete. And well, one thing to note, I guess, before I forget, to help us all, especially me, is that we've actually accepted and we made an offer of employment, and it was accepted for a new construction or capital improvement projects manager. So Karen's replacement should be here in a few weeks. And so that'll help provide some better continuity with a lot of these outstanding projects. So I just want to mention that. And yeah, that's about it for item number 10.
Fantastic news.
All right. Thank you very much. Sam, we can go to public comment, please.
In chambers, please provide speaker card. On Zoom, press *9 or the raise your hand icon. No comment.
Thank you. Supervisor Gonzalez, do you have anything further?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Great. I don't have anything either. So we can move on to item 11, receive updates and discuss the library grant, next steps, potential second round of library funding and utilizing Strata Verde Center for passport services and or provide staff direction if desired.
Great. And so on that note, I do believe Nora is online. If she's not, I can provide some context, but she's probably the most appropriate person to provide her vision for the library grant and potential second round of funding. Is Nora?
Yes, Nora should be on. Nora, if you can unmute yourself. Or Aaron.
Can you hear,
Come in just a second.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit under the weather, so I'm trying to speak up here. Okay, so it's an exciting time for the library and the community and all the wonderful things that could potentially happen here with these fundings that have been secured. As you know, we participated in the first round of grants, which was 10 million with a match of 5 million from our county. We have submitted additional information on the budget, and Steve and Damien have done that. So we've given them all of the information that they have requested. We're now looking at the construction company and what they're going to be doing at what cost. And of course, I have to say that the team over administration have done a great job in negotiating the costs and that kind of thing. Of course, this will have to go to the full board for any type of decision in that area. The next thing is that there's going to be a second round of funding, and they told us about this November, December. And if you were a library that was interested in an additional 10 million, they asked for a letter of interest, of which there's no commitment or anything like that. It's just telling them that there's still interest in expanding our library. So there's still time to think about which way we can expand the library. I have a couple of ideas that I would like to share as we go on into the process that I think might really help not only the library, but for other building that we might be able to do. Let me just give you the timeline on this one. In the first quarter of this year, they're going to be sending the information regarding this second round with the application. In the third quarter, then they will be telling us, who will be awarded the additional funds. Unlike the first round where you had to come in with half of it, this one would propose 10 million from the state library and 2.5 from the county. So that one, we're looking at thinking about. There's a letter of interest that has gone in on that one already. So those are the updates that I have for those particular grants, ones that we already have and ones that there's hopes of getting if the board gives approval. Then there's can I go to the next one or do we
Yes,
have?
of course, please.
Okay, so then the next one, this has to do with, I know that it's still a bit before, we have to find a home for library staff, but we've been out there looking around. And one of the things that's really, really important to this community is to be able to have their programs like homework club, passport services, literacy services, our sewing club, and a potential blanket making also as well. And it's difficult for folks to go out to further places that our places that are far away, excuse me. So I had an opportunity to be at this particular Strata Verde facility and had a conversation about the possibility of housing some of our activities like that I mentioned, like literacy and passport services, which are extremely popular, a homework club. So they were very open to allowing us to use that facility. And even now, because it's already very crowded in the library. Sometimes, you know, I went around and counted, and we had 62 individuals in here. So, and that's because of the programs that we have. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to use that facility even before we have to close for these very valuable programs to the community. Then I visited, and I want to thank Steve Lowe for going out there early in the morning, as well as John Costantino, so that we could look at the Fairview out on 5381 Fairview Drive. It's the Rosa Murata building as a potential swing space for us. I think it would do, but it would require some fixing. And I think that Steve might be able to speak about that. The other thing is that I want to assure you that even though our library will be closed, I would like to secure spaces where people will have their programs and also be able to take the bookmobile and the literacy technology mobile out during the time that we're closed. In addition, we will have at the end of March, beginning of April, we will have the kiosk up and ready to go. Steve, are we still on that same timeline?
Yes.
For the kiosk. Thank you. So that, for those of you that may not know where the do you know where the old Rancher's Feet store, 354 First Street, that's where the Strata Verde office is, and there's spaces that we could utilize, and they're willing to help us. And the 5381 Fairview Road is where the Rosa Murata property is at. And
Great.
that's what I have.
All right. Anything further from Nora? Anybody else on staff? If not, we'll go to public comment.
In chambers, please press a speaker card. On Zoom, please press *9 or the raise your hand icon. No comment.
Thank you very much. We'll bring it back. Ray, did you have something before I go to?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll just add
Yeah.
one more
Okay.
comment to that. Thank you, Nora. Thank you, Steve. I would just add that, we've been working with staff, RMA, the library folks, Nora and her team, and there's a time frame with the grant, and it's aggressive, and so it's a pretty large project. And so with that, we've been working with our construction management team that we've been working with at the jail, as well as the behavioral health building, the ones that actually built this building and other buildings for us. And we'll be most likely bringing that to the board soon. Just to, again, that's just to manage the project. There's going to be other things that will go to the board, going through RFP for the public, like construction companies and all the other things that go with this building. But we're looking at a design build, not a design bid build, which will shorten that period of time, so we can get that done. And time is of the essence. So the longer we wait, the longer we prolong this, we may not make the deadline. So it's pretty urgent. So, but we wanted to make sure that this committee, that both Supervisor Kosmicki and Supervisor Gonzalez knew kind of we're up against a time frame to get this done. And that's probably the best thing, especially what construction is right now, cost and other things. So with that, we'll be bringing that back to the board, but just wanted to let you guys know that. Steve, did you have anything further on that, or are you good with that? Okay. That's all we
Great.
have.
I'll bring it back to the committee. Supervisor Gonzalez, do you have any questions, comments?
No, but I'll be there shortly. Okay, I'm on my way.
Okay, great. And I did have, for clarification on that, so what would be the advised, if there was interest in exploring the grant and recommending that from this committee to the board, you know, would Nora then bring some concepts to the board as far as what the thinking is with this additional expansion potential?
Yeah, so
and when would
that's-
that happen? I mean, we'd be doing that relatively quickly, I would assume.
Yeah, so staff, that's one of the things that we've been meeting with the construction management team to try to develop a scope and kind of a cost. And I think that's where, you know, if we do go this route, it, you know, we think that, I mean, and I don't want to speak for Steve, he's our engineer, but I will just say from our conversations that the current footprint probably would not be able to handle the total amount of money that we would probably receive, which would be 26 million-ish or so, about approximately 25 million total, which then we would probably do something here where the old jail's at, demolish that, and the old public health building, and basically put a library there. And then we probably would keep that building, probably just refurnish, you know,
Just be a separate building.
it'd just be a complete separate building, a new building, if that's the case. But again, it's all conceptual right now. It's all discussed. We're not 100% sure. I know that the Friends of the Library have been working also on kind of design, working with Damon Felice. And so we're trying to use that input as well that's been done with kind of where we're at today. But again, adding that $12.5 million really is what it would be on top of the approximately 15 million that we have. It'd be another 12.5 approximately, which we would have to put in another 2.5 million into that. But we could use our impact fees. We'll have to defer that and use general fund money up front, but then eventually get paid back over that life. But that's just, again, that's kind of what we're working with. And again, Nora, I don't know if you don't mind stating kind of where we're at with that. She did reach out. She hasn't received a response yet. But we also wanted just to talk to this body here of is there interest? Do you want to see a bigger facility? You know, an additional $10 million infusion of money from the state. So,
And Susan Logue, our one public member here, and Friends of the Library representative, you said you seemed indicating you wanted to make a comment? That is okay. Yeah, you're welcome to come up.
Hi, Nora, are you there?
Hi, I'm here, dear.
Okay, so I was just going to share a little bit and then you can say more if you want to. How's
Of
that?
course.
Okay.
Perfect. Share
right.
with us.
Great. I wasn't sure how much everybody, Susan Logue, I'm with a Hollister resident, also Friends of the Library, the president, and Tammy Aviles, who's with the Coalition for the New Community Library. We've been working together and we got a grant from the Monterey Peninsula Community Foundation. And so then we worked with Felice and a certain architect, JK, and they came up with some renderings. And Tammy put together a presentation. We wanted to kind of bring that. Isn't that right, Nora?
Yes.
Yeah, and then we didn't know exactly the right timing because Nora let us know most likely it's going to be later in December when you might break ground. But that's wonderful. I mean, we can share that with you if that would help at all, or maybe you've seen it already because Nora's got copies, I think.
yeah, well, I don't know if we have it queued up right now, but maybe
Yeah.
the next facility meeting, we can bring that back and we'll make sure we get those renderings up on the screen. That would be great.
That would be great. yeah.
Okay, great. So then you just let me know how to do
Okay.
that.
Okay, we can
I
work
would
with
send it
that.
to the clerk or send it to Gracie Rodriguez and we'll get you the contact information.
Okay, great. And so we're really looking forward to working with you. We also are planning to do a big fundraiser for the interior of the library because Nora let us know, that won't be paid for the FFE. So Tammy and I and really the Friends and the Coalition really want to support the new library or the renovation of the library as best as we can. So we're really going to be aggressive. We're looking for millions. So that's what we're going to shoot for and that's what we're going to hopefully get. Anything else, Nora or Aaron?
No, I think that's it, but I'm really encouraged because people are calling and asking about contributions that they could make or when we're going to start. So I'm really encouraged by this. It's really a community move to expand the library and work together to make, the delivery of service a lot better for us in San Benito County.
Great, appreciate that.
Thank you.
And then just to elaborate just briefly on the potential for a second grant, I personally think we should, I'll wait for Ray to trying to give direction. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we should look the other way. I think we should at least explore it and see if there's interest. Personally, I would like to see some conceptual options as far as what that second building might look like. If it's something that's particularly unique to the other, maybe perhaps it's an annex that's focused on technology or something along those lines. But yeah, so I don't think that we should walk away from it personally as one member, and it might be something that we want to bring to the whole board probably as soon as possible, just considering the timeline. And I don't know if Supervisor Gonzalez, if you're still on, if you have thoughts about that.
Yes, I'm still on, and I'm just parking right now in the admin building, but anything that we can do to assist the library to get its new home up and running, I'm very much in favor for it. So yes, bringing it to the board, I would definitely support that.
Okay, so do we need that in the form of a motion, or are we okay on just giving direction to have that brought back?
Yeah, no, what we'll do, so we'll bring the renderings back for our next meeting. But those renderings are, I think, for the existing site. There hasn't been any renderings for kind of a larger site, 25 million plus. We do have some renderings from our master plan different options that incorporates potentially a library within that, which we could probably bring back that fits in that area that we're discussing. But we can look at that and discuss. We'll discuss this offline. I'll discuss it with RMA and Nora, to see what we can provide for this board. I think it'd be good to bring it here, kind of discuss it a little bit more, and then bring it back to the board. But I'm not opposed to bringing it back. And again, we're waiting on confirmation if we can even apply for that additional funding. So that's kind of where we're in this limbo state right now. So hate to invest more money into something that we may not get on the if we change the footprint to across the way here.
Okay, great. Okay, and then just last.
May I just say something, Ray?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to be able to expand somewhat by 4,000 square feet. But that still means that we're going to be under still 40,000 square feet to serve this community. So with understanding that, I feel really strongly that we have a good chance for that second round. It all depends on, how, and there's some ideas that the administrative team and RMA have spoken with me, and I've spoken with them about. And I think that there's a pretty good chance for us to secure, because we have the land. They won't give you money for land, but they will give you money for expansion and even a new library.
Okay.
So when the time comes, I think that, we can have this discussion. It's very preliminary now, but there's hope to increase our footprint.
Yeah, thank you, Nora. Thank you so much for all these efforts. As you know, I'm very big supporter of library expansion and everything you're doing.
Of course.
And then go ahead, real briefly.
Okay.
Something.
I did wish to ask, is there any possibility of us being able to use the Stradivari property for the programs?
Yeah, I was going to move on to that. I know that was kind of one of the bullet points. And so we can see how the committee feels about that. But I just feel very strongly that the county, just considering it's a major project, and it's, whatever word you want to use, it's political, it's, there's two very divisive sides on the issue. I don't think the county personally should be using a building like that. It's just the perception in the public. It's just not a good, it's very awkward to me that the county would be using a building for an active applicant for the biggest project in the county's history, to be using that building. And it just wouldn't be a good look for the county. And I think we just have to be as neutral as possible on that project in particular, as they go through the application process. So I would not support that as one supervisor. I don't know how Supervisor Gonzalez might feel.
I'm here in the building now. I actually feel that it's actually a good idea. The Stradivarius site has been used for a lot of community events. Namely, the last one that I went to was a meeting with PG&E and moving forward with the county on our grid issues. But the weekend prior to that was the event that was held for OES on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And then on that Sunday, I want to say there was a community event. It was an outdoor winter market. So it's not just a facility, and I understand it's a big project, but they really are allowing their space to be utilized for the community in general. So I don't see that being a conflict in my opinion, but there's also the alternate side of maybe the epicenter, because the epicenter is doing the same thing as well with its building. And there shouldn't be a conflict with that. But I'm not going to go so far as say that the optics wouldn't be good for the county, but there are other choices out there.
Appreciate that, Supervisor Gonzalez. And I totally get what you're saying as far as we have limited space. I just would add that, that there will undeniably be a perception that, Stradivarius is trying to build goodwill in the community, and they have an incentive to do that. It's to get a project eventually approved, and this could very well end up on the ballot at some point. And I just not to belabor the point, but I just feel strongly that I just respectfully disagree. I think it is a conflict for the county, and so we'll very likely be split on that. And I don't know how that would, perhaps, I don't know what the next steps would be on that part.
Well, I would still hope that we could still bring the idea to the county, to the board, the whole board, and then kind of.
I think
and that certainly is
Right,
totally
and let the
fine, yeah.
majority
And
decide.
it's just we can explain our piece there, and however the board decides, then that's how the board decides.
we could do that.
Okay.
Do you want to go through the traditional motion though of adding it to the agenda by requesting it an idea instead of?
Well, no, I mean,
or
I
you
think,
wanna just-
I think the
or you wanna
two
just-
board
okay,
members
you
here,
both wanna-
and this is out of the committee. I think it's okay to take things out of
Just
these committees
logical.
back to the
Yeah.
board. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, anything else on that? Doesn't look like. And so we can move on to item 12, receive updates and discuss Rosa Murata's status, potential usage of the building area by the library department, and or provide staff direction if desired. And Steve on that as well.
Yes, thank you. So as Nora mentioned, we recently toured the building with her and her staff and our building maintenance manager. And there's, just for context, there's two larger buildings. It was a previous preschool site that is now owned by the county. And the larger building is 4,000 to 5,000 square feet, and the smaller building is maybe 1,000 or 2,000 square feet. The larger building, the flooring's in very good shape. There are restrooms. There's a restroom area that will need to be upgraded. There's a kitchen area that will need to be upgraded. However, just based on the lack of available offices and office space for the county, I think it's worth exploring. And whether it's Nora and or other county kind of department heads to just explore that larger building, bring an architect and get some, kind of a ballpark number of how much it might cost to just add some office space there, since we seem to have a shortage and we seem to have a need for temporary relocations of folks. Maybe we could, it might accommodate 10 to 12 folks, depending on the orientation, the layout of the interior of that larger building. The smaller building might be more appropriate just for storage and things. So it was a good tour, and I think there's some potential there. Originally, it was considered to be a possible new fire station location. And for different reasons that did not move forward, but I think it's worth exploring for potential tenant improvements, pending general funds. And I don't know if we can find a grant for that type of staff office space, that'd be wonderful. But I think it's at least worth exploring for tenant improvements for staffing. I'll
Great.
pause there.
Anything further from staff? And we can go to public comment, please.
Zoom, please press star 9 or the raise your hand icon. No comment.
Back to the committee, and Supervisor Gonzalez, do you have any questions, comments on Rosa Morada?
No, I know that we've looked at it for a couple of different purposes, but nothing has quite materialized. At one point, I know that we're talking at possibly a sale. Are we still looking at selling it, or are we retaining it for county use?
I think Steve's, hitting it right on the mark. There's such a need. And I think with all this potential construction happening, we're going to have to relocate people anyways. So I think it's probably good we start working on having that, we just had a break in our gas line here. And if we, it's not really good. It would be good to move some folks if we could. We just don't have that space. So it would be great to have a backup space like this. I know the ag commissioner, I know there's been a lot of interest from different departments to move out in that location. And I know that currently with the build out and potential, we'll have to move all the library folks out of that building. Where are they going to go? We're going to have to lease a building. We're going to have to do something. There's been discussion of, having them be remote, with their RVs that they have. But I think it's a really good idea to at least see what it would cost, have somebody go in there and take a look, evaluate it, and then bring it back to this group.
And the water issue, would we address that at the same time?
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Are you referring to the flooding potential, Supervisor?
No,
No.
just the non-potable
well.
water.
Yeah, and actually, I don't know where that stands. We were going to start some testing, but then I think we paused, honestly. So if you'd like, we revisit the testing of the water. And
Well, just as long as if we're going to put any county staff out there, we have drinkable water. I wouldn't want to poison any of them. But I mean, the sewer wouldn't be so much of an issue, but the drinking capacity, yeah, that concerns me.
Okay,
Damn,
we
water's
can do that as
pretty
a
good.
first step if that's your direction.
Damn good water. Yes.
Yeah, if you want us to proceed with the testing, we can make an action.
Is
item
it
for water.
necessary? Do we need to? Because we already know there's an issue with the water. Do we need to expend the resources on that?
No, I think in order for us to, I think that's the first step, is to understand what kind of water we have out there.
Okay.
If we're gonna use that facility for staff, I think that's the first step, and then actually, bring an architect in if potentially to design it out.
Okay.
That'd be the recommendation.
Anything else, Supervisor?
No, I'm good with that. Thank you.
Okay, the questions I had, the library part, can anyone explain what the intention might be if the library potentially used that location?
Nora, I mean, I think it'd be pretty-
Are you talking about Murata?
yes,
Murata.
Property? Well, we have to have a space to be able to do, the different functions, of the library. Like, for example, we need a cataloging space.
Okay, got it.
You
And
know, my hope was that we would be able to use something closer in town, but and that might still be a possibility, we'll see. I'm starting looking, and I'm turning every stone I possibly can to come up with the best situation, for us. But staff will have to, have a place to operate from.
To operate, I'm sorry. if you could-
Like, if folks are wanting literacy service, if they're wanting passports, if they're wanting programming, we'll do what we can.
Wouldn't that potentially be if we looked at the expansion? Wouldn't that be something? If we were looking at the secondary expansion, the jail building?
well, I think
I'm a little-
again, so I think there's a couple things with that. One is it wouldn't necessarily be an expansion. We would move the $15 million we have currently and add the 12.5 million to that. So we'd have a total of $27.5 million that we potentially could put here at the at the old jail site. So is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but could we potentially, I guess what I'm getting at is, could we potentially use some of that grant money for the Rosa Morada? If we move
Oh, I see.
forward with that grant. And the second question is, and this is just thinking, this is the first time I've thought of this, but would Rosa Morada be a good location for a library annex for a second expansion? Or would we want to just focus all the services downtown?
That's a Nora question. I do know that Nora has been we have looked at potentially having a satellite library like at the, down in the southern part of our county. And I know that there's been discussions in the northern part. So I don't know, Nora, you're gonna have to answer that.
Because we have so much activity in this area and so much usage, I would not recommend Rancho Mirada at this point for, and I don't believe that it would qualify, Supervisor Kosmicki, because it's not an existing library.
Got it. And I'm not even saying I would support that. I'm just kind of throwing out what's been explored and what are the best way to maximize our dollars, I guess, is what I'm getting at with that. So
Impact fee, if that was going to be a dedicated area for library in the long run, you could use impact fees.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then do we have any kind of broad ballpark on the cost of improvements for Rosa Morada? And I ask that only because we have some serious limitations here is the funding we have to do. I know we all want to rebuild all the facilities and everything, but we really are strapped for, it's just not realistic to do too much. So I'm just curious what the ballpark would be just generally, if that's possible.
Based on the tour, although the flooring structurally sounds, and long story short, I think we'd need at least about $500,000 to make just the basic improvements that would be required.
But it's not some eye-popping multi-million dollar. That's all I was curious about. And then I also was curious about the selling thing, but you've answered that. And it seems like even with the market where it is now to sell at this point, we don't see that as okay. And then I do want to ask about she asked about the water. I'm curious about the flooding, and it's a floodplain. So what would there be additional mitigation we would have to go through for something like that?
So the first thing we'll do, both buildings are elevated slightly. I'm not sure they're out of the floodplain. So we'll have to have a surveyor survey the elevations of the floor and see where that's at. But my suggestion would be we just remodel the existing structure, because if based on funding, as you just noted, to demolish the whole structure and rebuild, that would be, depending on the size of the building, it could be 1.5 million ish. So
okay. And then last question, the cost of the architect, if we recommend today to bring to the board going forward with an architect?
Yeah, based on the cost for the CSS remodel and the size, it would probably be 40 to 50,000 ish.
Okay.
But again, I think our architect, they work with us. My suggestion is we just walk the site with them, and they don't charge a fee for that, and that they can give us an idea of their service fee and then the construction cost. So that'd be my first recommendation.
And so what you're looking for today is a recommendation on that in particular.
Correct.
And so Supervisor Gonzalez, are you okay with?
I would definitely embrace that as opposed to contracting. Yeah. Whatever we can get for free.
Yeah. So recommend we'll move forward with at least exploring the architect, seeing what the cost might be, and then bringing that back to the entire board.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we have.
And maybe it might be a good recommendation. I'm not sure if you both have seen that site. I mean, when we go do the other visit at Behavioral Health, maybe we do that visit too, just so you can see it as well and have put
As a
things in.
teenager, I actually worked there when it was akin to Go Kids,
Mhm.
the CETA program for the county, believe it or not.
Well, yeah. Okay, so wow.
40 plus years ago. Yes.
And we did do public comment on this one already, I believe, right?
I believe you did already. Yeah.
We did, great. So if that's all, if there's anything else, supervisor, anybody else, we can move on. Item 13, discuss housing, Buena Vista property, migrant housing center, Joe Serna Jr. Farm Worker Housing Grant Program, provide staff direction if desired. So who would be presenting?
I will. So thank you for agenda item 13. Quick update on the migrant housing center up on the hill from Southside Road across from the Public Works yard. We're actually moving forward with a $2 million tenant improvement to almost 70 dwelling areas. And we're going to be installing flooring, windows, and some interior and exterior cosmetic painting and things. And so that's actually starting, I believe, next week, actually, with construction. We're going to have to work around. There are some existing families there today that were impacted by the storm. So we're going to, I believe there's 16 there today. And so we're going to just kind of work around them. And I think there'll be some more updates on that on the board retreat. So as far as how those folks, will be housed in the near future. So I'll just pause there on that. And then I'll jump over to the Buena Vista property and the Joe Serna Farm Worker Housing Grant Program. So to talk about the grant, there's actually a couple grants that we're pursuing within the next couple weeks. One of them is a Cal Home Program grant. There's $135 million available, and I'll talk about how we're pursuing that in a moment. And there's a second grant. There's a Farm Worker Housing Grant that has $35 million available. And those are great programs. They're all about home ownership for folks that need some assistance. And they pretty much, the grants ask for a partnership between public entities and nonprofits. And so I'll also talk about that in a moment. But let's just jump into the Cal Home grants. So there's actually a resolution that the board approved to pursue that grant during the February 7th meeting. We have our grant writers currently working on that grant, and we're essentially pursuing two funding streams. One is a first-time homebuyer mortgage assistance and the max grant amount allowed is $5 million. There's also ADU programs for, accessory units for folks to live in and be provided to folks. And that grant is also, we're pursuing an amount of $5 million. And we'll know in June how that pursuit goes. And I'll provide a little more details even on both of those in just a moment. And then I'll jump over to the Joe Serna grant, Joe Serna Jr. grant, excuse me. So on that grant, we're the max I think we're going to be able to ask for is $5 million, and we're looking to purchase manufactured housing. And that essentially kind of looks like essentially just a manufactured home. Is kind of like you'd see in a trailer park, although they're very nice. And there is a location that we'll see if I can remember in a moment, where there's actually a location in the county that has some manufactured housing, and it's pretty nice. But that grant is also due in a few weeks, and our consulting folks are also working on that grant. And on that note, California Consulting has been extremely helpful in all our grants. And so we appreciate that the board authorized those folks to pursue grants for us. We're actually going to be pursuing probably, 15 or 20 during the 2023, the next, 9 or 10 months, actually. So those are the two grants, and I'll provide a little bit about more context on location and what we hope to do with some locations. So the Buena Vista property, for those of you that aren't familiar, the county actually owns the kind of the corner where if you're driving out of town on Buena Vista Road before you make a right-hand turn to head to 156, we actually own 6 acres on the corner there that's been discussed for various uses. And possibly, if we are allowed either one of those grants, we'll be able to use that property for that. Although the Chappelle property that I'll talk about in a second might even be more appropriate. But Buena Vista, We have 6 acres available, and we'll see how that goes. So, oh, I went wrong way. So that's a kind of a Google view of the property, just for context, and yeah, I'll move forward. So there's well, I don't want to. I don't think we need to talk about the mapping of the property, but it's a good piece of property. That's the access to the property. One thing, kind of a side note, it used to be kind of 2 feet high, occupied by debris and trash and garbage, and the cheer folks and some volunteer groups have cleaned it up. So now we just have a fence that errant vehicles continue to damage on a bi-monthly basis, but well, as you can see there. So and just some more views of the property. So Chappelle Road, we actually own that as well. That property is just down the street from the airport. And we actually, HHSA acquired that property a few years ago. It's 3.4 acres. It's currently within the city of Hollister limits, so we'll have to coordinate any development with them. Assuming that the city would approve of, say, a manufactured home type of project, then on site, we think that our folks could be responsible for building inspection. And long story short, we'd have to work in conjunction with the city of Hollister, but we do own the property. And I'll provide a little bit more context for that in a moment. So there's the property. It's kind of difficult to tell, but it's at the corner of San Felipe and Chappelle, and kind of as you're heading out of town, it's in a good location. So I'll leave it at that. And one thing to note, there's a little zoomed up version of the property. And right now it's pretty much a dirt field. So, oops, I'm sorry. So let me go back just one. So we think we actually met with Sunny Flores out there and Joel Ellenwood, our county council, to kind of explore opportunities for the Chappelle property. We think it lends the use and the location and the layout of the site probably lends to being used for the manufactured homes. So if we receive the manufactured homes grant, $5 million, we actually think we could fit about 50 of those manufactured homes on that site. That would be at $200,000 a unit. That'd be $10 million. So it might have to be phased. So let's just say we did 25 manufactured homes installed on site. They average about $200,000 per manufactured home. So about half that site would be occupied. And that's if we receive the grant. So we'll know a little bit more in June, but that's kind of our thought with the Joe Cerna grant. So see, I think I'll pause there.
Can I ask you?
Oh,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to ask a question on that. I know that in previous meetings we've had that, we were looking at that plot of land for other things. And I know Health and Human Services strongly objected to any future development because they had quote unquote plans. So have those plans been, I don't know the right word, fleshed out? That's a good one. Thank you. Is it now available for us to possibly utilize?
So the answer, I'll answer that in 2 parts. The first part, and I stopped on this photo. If you look just to the left of the yellow highlighted area, there's an existing home that is going to be remodeled in the next 4 to 5 months with existing grant funding from HHS, or that HHS received. And you're correct. They have some visions for affordable housing or just housing period on that site. And so the answer is no, we haven't broached this subject with them. We wanted to see the grant there's a lot of options you can use with those grants. And so if they didn't want to pursue this site, let's just say hypothetically, if we receive the 5 million for the manufactured homes, then and HHS thought that this site could be utilized more appropriately for another use, we could utilize the Buena Vista site in lieu of this site. We actually have 4 or 5 sites that we're looking at, but the top 2 are the Chappelle site and the Buena Vista site. So we have not coordinated that with HHS.
I guess my question is probably a little bit more simpler than that. Should we decide this committee and then take it to the board to be able to go forward with the mobile homes, the 50 at that site? Do you think that they would get some objection from Health and Human Services? And I understand about the 2 existing units and their desire to revamp it and so forth. But does their department own it solely, or the county owns it? I guess I'm trying to figure out proprietary rights is what I'm looking at. We are the county. And so.
And if just to add, I see Enrique's on the call, so I don't know if
Okay.
Enrique potentially has any perspective.
I was
And I
just-
know Ray was going to say
I
something.
was just going to
sorry.
add one thing, and then I'll let Enrique discuss this particular property. We've been working diligently with this Cerna grant over the last week. We've been buried, immersed in this 2 weeks or so. And we are also reaching out to the city of Hollister. So I have a meeting tomorrow with the mayor as well as our chair to discuss potential site availability through the city as well. So next to the sewage plant, there's some land there that we're going to request. So basically with this grant, we just need to label some spots where we can
Right.
put these mobile home trailers at or site for us to submit it. I think in lieu of what has happened and transpired out at Lovers Lane, I think this is really important that we go after this. And so we already started working on it. And the grant is due at the end of this month. Our next meeting is the 28th. So we are just going with it. We're going to just do it. We'll probably discuss this with the board on the 28th, but we have to do the work now. We can't wait till the 28th and then miss this window. So we just wanted to make sure that you are aware of potential site locations, and also to reaching out to our local jurisdictions, our neighbors, to see if they have some sites too.
And I have no objection whatsoever on the rapid response and pace that you're taking this. I understand that we just became aware of it January 2023, and here it is mid-February,
Right.
and then all of a sudden there's a deadline. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
realize that time is of the essence, and so I have no objections. I just know that there was a previous reservation on this territory, and so Enrique's on the line, so let's hear him.
And I also wanted to do one more caveat before Enrique gets on. Enrique has also been really helpful along with Steve. Steve, thank you. We are also potentially utilizing the money that the board had asked, $250,000 to provide for housing for the individuals that were displaced. That will be coming to the board on the 21st for the migrant camp location. So we have 14 spots open that we potentially can put some trailers on, mobile home trailers, which are pretty nice actually for the price that we're going to be offered. It's going to be more than the $250,000. We have different options. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 options. Thank you, Enrique, for working on that. It's not in this packet, but that will be presented. It will be published today. Hopefully we'll get the retreat published today. Thank you, Gracie. But we've been working through this and trying to get, it's going to be a very great board retreat, the 21st and 22nd, but this will be on there for the very first item on the agenda on the 21st. So it'll be good. I just wanted to thank both Enrique and Steve publicly, as well as Gracie, for putting things together. Enrique?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, the Chappelle property was purchased probably about 2.5 or 2 years ago or so. It was purchased with whole person care. The name of the agreement, the funding source is whole person care one-time housing grant. I did have a few discussions with RMA, with Stephanie, and just one this morning. So she did fill me a little bit more on the intent of these 2 grants. One of the conditions with the purchase of this property, and I forgot the right title, but it's something about the property improvement agreement. So before any construction takes place in this property, there is an agreement that needs to be met, which sums it up that the road needs to be repaired or replaced, and the utilities need to go underground. A couple years ago, we did submit a CDBG grant to accomplish this. It was not funded. However, it was placed on the wait list. And over the last 2 or 3 months, we received notification that those 2020 or 2019 grants would be considered for funding at the next cycle, which is released in June. So we have the whole intentions to submitting that application again to help support this project. So that's one thing. Second is, since these funds were directly tied from whole person care one-time housing grant, I just need to check with the state, the intended population. This population under these 2 grants will be for farm workers. So I want to make sure that it's acceptable. I believe one of the conditions is kind of low income. So farm workers traditionally are, but I want to make sure that we're on the right track as far as the use of populations for this property. So if it all pans out, this can be a potential site.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Enrique. Yeah, just applaud staff for pursuing the grant. I think the board has made it clear that farm worker housing, low-income housing is a priority. I know it's a priority for Supervisor Gonzalez and myself. And so very good judgment call on that. And then I don't have a problem with either. I think either site works for me. I think they're good sites. I will say if we go Chappelle and we still have Buena Vista, I know CAO knows my feelings that for me personally, I still would like us to have a plan for Buena Vista and what we can do potentially, whether it's farm worker housing, affordable housing, partnering maybe with a nonprofit of some kind. At some point, I would hope that we, really have some sort of focus on what to do with Buena Vista as well. But I think both sites are great. And then, so we would use half the property for the 25 homes at Chappelle. The other half, I don't know if there's funding available, but an initial thought was maybe we could put like a pocket park in there or something, for those families, just to have some. I don't think we have too much out in that. I know there's the dog park for the city out by the airport, but it might be just to maybe look at the feasibility at least. I don't know what the costs involved might be or on that sort of thing. And then in Buena Vista, I just have some notes here. The damage by monthly. Do we have some kind of? I can't think of I drive past there. Do we have any warning signage or anything? The sort of the public works sort of orange sort of things that tell people don't drive through this fence.
We did approximately a year ago. I think it got knocked down, but we can actually add a couple more signs there, as well as a curve that's about a quarter mile northeast of there, because both of those locations are problems. So we'll add signs back up there.
That was all I had, but from us, you just need. What do you make sure? Just that we're okay with
just that you're supportive of the grant, the pursuit of the grant,
and the location sites.
Locations.
Yes, definitely to both of those.
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate that. Anything else? No. So we can move on to 14, discuss revamping the county board chambers, public seating chairs located in the county administration building, and provide staff direction if necessary. And I did notice these seats, these suddenly right before facilities showed up with these
Right on cue, right? Right on cue.
No, they were here prior to Monday because we had we had our meeting on Monday
I
for
know
the
they
hack,
were.
and I'm like, what's
Yeah.
wrong with the chairs?
And we had intergovernmental too. I'm kidding. But so we want to present, go forward, please.
Yeah, so there's approximately, I believe there's 20-ish chairs that have various small issues where they just don't operate appropriately or properly, I should say. And so just as a discussion, and we can probably bring this back to either the next ad hoc or the next board meeting, but when the board chambers are full, we'd recommend at least doing some kind of minimal upgrade to these. And just for some context, I think back in October of 21, we had proposed an item to upgrade the chairs and have some of the chairs be laptop capable to have some adopters installed on some of the, not all of them, but I think it was the front and the back rows. And the board, due to some, budget decisions that were made, decided not to move forward. So if this committee so chooses, we can look at maybe some basic upgrades and then or revisit that plan that I think replaced all the chairs. And like I said, some of them actually had adopters for laptops. And maybe provide those two costs back to this committee and go from there per your direction this morning. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So there was an individual that had I guess there was some issues or something. So I asked Vanessa, can she please have maintenance come out? So thank you to your maintenance team coming out here and trying to fix it or evaluate which ones were broken. So then they're like, oh, they started going through them all. And there was quite a few. They did state to me that the chairs are so old, I don't know if they have parts for it. That's what they mentioned to me. And the parts would be very difficult to get to fix the chairs, just to repair them. So I said, okay, well, at that point, I said, you know what, let's just bring it back to the facility committee. I know that was a concern before. And I don't know if there's something that we can do, Steve, maybe, because I think the dollar figure was approximately $90,000, if I recall correctly. Maybe looking at a cheaper chair or just, maybe a different chair without all the, doodads with it. Just because, I think our meetings are long and, so I think, and we do need to repair these chairs, or at least people shouldn't be using them, the ones that are broken. So that was really all I wanted to say.
Great. Go to public comment, please.
Via Zoom, please press star 9 or raise your hand icon. No comment.
Bring it back to the committee. Supervisor Gonzalez.
Okay, this is a conversation we began 14 months ago. And so I want to make sure we stay on it. The original ask was to make sure that the board chambers was ADA compliant. And we did at least the entrance of the doors in the building, but obviously there's still a lot to be achieved. And so I don't want to put this on the table. I don't want to wait. I want to move forward. So going back to our our July agenda, I could have swore that we aren't dark in July where we normally are. I think there's a meeting scheduled this year in July. So that would kind of interfere with any kind of proposed construction timeframe, right? Because last time we were looking at the month of July when we were dark. And if I recall properly, our July is not dark this year.
Yes, you are correct. But it is the very last meeting, full week meet. So we have 3 weeks in July available or free. But again, that's up to Steve, contractor, and a bunch. If you're asking that have the seats replaced during that time, is that
if that's a possibility?
your
I
point?
don't know how Supervisor Kosmicki feels.
Yeah.
I just know how I feel. And
Yeah.
as I said, 14 months ago, we started this conversation and we were stopped in our tracks, and
Yeah.
I'm going to be like a speeding train and push through because we need to.
Steve,
So,
timing.
my only comment on the timing is with all our projects, materials are an issue in ordering materials. So I think the installation could easily be accomplished at that time. It's just a matter of ordering them soon and, and having them arrive for the summertime. But, it shouldn't take more than a week, I would assume, if that, to replace the chairs, if the board gives us direction in that regard. So.
Well, Supervisor Kosmicki, you go
Yeah,
ahead and-
no, I appreciate it. I know there's a need, but I always come back to, we can't, I think we do need to replace these chairs. So I'll just start with that. But we do have to still be, as we both know, obviously, we do have to be cognizant of the bigger picture here. We've talked today, just on this agenda here today, we've talked about, several items that are very high priced items, and we do have these needs. But so I would think the best option would be to, as the CAO mentioned it, give us a few options, basically, not just the sort of the high end sort of chairs. And then I do think we want them to be comfortable. I'm just the bells and whistles part of it. I think, being a relatively poor county, I think we do have to be cognizant of that. I do know the staff there's a few staff members that would like to use ports or the laptops. I don't know if there's some other creative solution we might have. I know we have this table here. If people want to use a laptop, is that something where there could be a station, for instance, in the chambers where it's, designated for the laptop usage as opposed to, I don't know what the cost differential might be, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
But just having all those options, just so that we can just have options on the table. So we have the different levels of what the cost and benefits might be.
Okay.
We'll move forward
Yeah,
accordingly.
we'll
So I
do
think we have
that. Yeah.
direction.
We'll get some options and come back to this group and maybe show you on a diagram.
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else on that? We've gone to public comments, so that brings us to 15 future agenda items. No discussion shall occur, but the committee may direct any of the reports to be placed on the agenda for a future meeting. I'll just start with public comment officially, I guess, on that, and then we'll come back.
Zoom *9 or the raise your hand icon. No comment.
Back to the committee.
I don't have any particular items of discussion that I want to put on agenda. I'm confident the staff is bringing all of the issues to us, and so I'm good.
I agree. And, there's several items from this agenda alone that I assume are going to be coming back as well. So we should still have a fairly packed facility agenda. So that's all we have on that. If there's anything else, we can adjourn.
No, we have a closed session.
Oh, so sorry. Apologize. Adjourn to closed session. So county council.
Yes. I'm not gonna read it out, but if there's any public comment on the closed session, item number 16.
Raise your hand via the raise your hand icon or *9. No comment.
Great. We'll adjourn to closed session. Thank you very much.
And thank you for taking the Rolexes. I just couldn't handle that today. And
Yeah.